One of the key things you have highlighted it is, can we subsidize our labor? Uh, we have Manrega where we are spending about 63,000 crores every year. It's supposed to be off season whenever they want something. Can we create a permanent employment base? A part of that, at least the younger people can be trained in 60 days and then engaged in this. That would be one of the things perhaps for policy making we can think of rather than random uh, the Manrega type of thing. Okay, we need to move on. And the person who is responsible for getting our exports zooming, Mr. Mithileshwar Thakur is the Secretary General Apparel Export Promotion Council under the Ministry of Textiles. So he is the person who is continuously looking after the exports and what needs to be done. I think let's hear his views on this. The detailed CV of all the people, at least the key speakers, are in your folder, and I'll save on the time in reading the full CV, but listen to the words of wisdom from Mr. Thakur. Thank you.
A very good morning to all of you. Mr. Kansal, Additional Secretary, Minister of Textiles, Professor Gulati, distinguished members of this August gathering, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the textile sector, known for its glorious past, the rich tradition and heritage, and of course, a promising future, contributes, I think, 12 to 13% of India's industrial output and employs, of course, we all know 45 million of people directly and some 60 million odd, indirectly, has a market size of almost $175 billion, which is slated to reach a level of $350 billion by 2030. All of that we know. The most important element in the entire textile value chain, the apparel sector, I think it holds a place of prominence for two distinct reasons. One is that it has a humongous potential for employment generation and, of course, the capacity to add value. And there is a very interesting example study, I think, the employment generation capacity of RIL versus SAI exports, that for every $2.2 million of investment, a company like Reliance Industry Limited employs only 5 persons as against 1,260 people by SAI exports. And it is not about SAI alone. See, any apparel manufacturing unit, that kind of a employment generation capacity it has, almost 252 times. That is unimaginable. So textile, but again, the textile sector has been a classic case of missed opportunities, and I would say irony even. With massive fiber infrastructure, the presence of entire textile value chain, minimal import dependence, the progress in design and all of that, I think it has not grown the way it should have grown. In fact, if you look at the external trade, the picture is absolutely dismal. For almost a decade or so, I think the export curve has almost plateaued. So there is something very seriously wrong, and I think it warrants some serious introspection, both on the part of the government and the industry. Of course, in recent years, government has come out with multi-pronged strategy like PLI, PM Mitra, Samarthya scheme, and has a lot of FTA engagements to have a better market access for the players. But the million-dollar question, I think that needs to be answered is that whether these government initiatives have translated into growth of the industry on the ground, and whether the industry seeks to reboot and revive the sector only on the basis of these, I would not say freebies, but support from the government alone. Of course, there are challenges. There is no denying that. See, the textile sector, I mean, unlike our global competitors, here lacks scale, vertical integration, the size of units being small, of course, lacks economy of scale, and therefore, a limited technology adoption and marked by low productivity. All that is happening, and then the archaic labor laws on the top of it, antiquated labor laws, basically discourages expansion and resulting in very small firms with a lot of informal employment. And ultimately, you suffer in terms of efficiency and productivity. You have obvious capacity constraints, which is a major stumbling block and prevents, of course, country like India from encassing any opportunity that comes. I think most of the opportunities that are coming our way will go a-begging unless we are able to ramp up our capacity. Then we have critical dependence on some of the select products and select markets. European Union, USA, and UK account for almost, I think, 71% of India's exports. Top 10 markets account for 74% of India's exports. Top 20 products account for 63% of India's exports. Our export basket is not aligned with the global trend. We end up pushing what we produce, not producing what needs to be exported. Of course, it is primarily on account of the cotton MF imbalance that we have, and it is much talked about. I would not like to dwell on that. Then you have fragmented structure in the industry. The processing and weaving segment of the value chain is pretty weak, unorganized. Then you have a scenario where cotton is grown in states like Gujarat and Maharashtra, spinning done in Tamil Nadu, again processing done in Gujarat, and then of course garmenting is all over the country. So there is a lot of back and forth leading to delays, increasing logistic cost, and therefore what impacts what you call speed to the market. There is a 2021 BGMA study where India's speed to the market, order to delivery time of 63 days compared to Bangladesh 50 days. And I think the figures might have changed over the years, but then we lose a lot of orders just because of the poor speed of market. I'll come to that later. Then again, you have shortage of labor. Shortage of labor, of course, in urban clusters mostly. Then the industry is marked by a lot of absenteeism, attrition of labor, serious skill gaps, and of course, lack of branding. You do not have Indian brands turning global. So all of that. So it's not that we have not had opportunities. China Plus One came, I think we could not capitalize that. Now you have Bangladesh Plus One opportunity because of course political upheaval there, but it remains to be seen whether we'll be able to capitalize because we are not able to ramp up productions. So you are not in a position to basically bag orders and execute them. And then of course you have another opportunity coming your way because of the reciprocal tariff. Of course, that keeps on changing every other day. But the point is that as of now, if the reciprocal tariff is in force, then you have a distinct advantage over countries like Bangladesh by 11% and by Vietnam by almost 20%. But with the idiosyncrasy, if I use that term, and unpredictability of Trump administration, you do not ultimately know where the tariff will settle. So that's something remains to be seen. So we need to have our strategy in place, and I think we need to think something out of the box. There are certain problems, we have obvious answers. I think capacity augmentation, PLI 2.0 industry demanded, I think that may not see the light of the day. PLI 1.0, I think we have been pushing government that I think that should be tweaked basically, because I very strongly believe that PLI was not designed for garment industry. It was for bigger players. So the threshold limit must be brought down. The value addition norm was not practical. It was 60%. It should generally be 40 plus. And then, of course, year-on-year growth that is anticipated in PLI was 25%, which is not aligned to the industry norms. And of course, the export basket, which was illegal for this turnover growth and all that, was again needed to be expanded. So some changes are required. One doesn't know really what. Another thing that I would like to highlight is that we should stop manufacturing for others. The data in apparel trade is so huge. What the value that we export from here and the ultimate price that a consumer pays in the foreign market is too huge. So we should stop manufacturing for others. We should look for branding our products. There is an estimate. We have a ambitious plan of 40 billion by 2030. The general estimate is that by the average size of the plant, manufacturing unit that we have, it would require some 1,200 new manufacturing units to come up to meet that requirement. And by average industry projection, I think you will not have more than 200 to 300. So you will be able to achieve that goal only when you have a improved UVR, unit value realization, and that can come only when you are able to brand your products. The Indian brands need to go global. We should stop manufacturing for others. I think we should emerge with global brands. So there is a need. I think we have been trying to get in touch with what you call IBEF and maybe some other agency, because we have been requesting our members to acquire all kinds of certifications. Because you need to have certifications, you need to, of course, through Bharat Text, of course, what we did is we could create a brand India image. We could project to the globe, the global community that look, Indian industry is unified. The textile industry is not actively working in silos. It is, there is synergy. Everyone is same page. But the point is that is the overall Indian image of the textile industry that has improved. But the brands have to become global brands. You do not have a single global brand in textile. And that is, unless that happens, I think, so we have been, what we did is, we have been going, requesting all our members to acquire as much certification as they can have. We intend to MoT with Green Business Council, because we have only 13 LEED certified factories in India. Look at Bangladesh. So we have said that we should keep a target for ourselves. That means we will next, say 1 year, we should have at least 100 LEED certified factories. Then we are trying to, because unless you do that, I think things will not change. Then there is an urgent need of market and product diversification. Product diversification, of course, will automatically happen if this, MMF issue is addressed and PLI is tweaked. But the market diversification, I think, we'll need to look up to, because any downturn in the market that we export will badly impact our, foreign trade. So we need to look up to maybe Latin America, to Africa. Russia is a good market, because European brands have disappeared there because of the conflict with Ukraine. So I think there's a huge opportunity over there, particularly with the rupee trade, getting activated. Then we should explore all possibilities in Latin America. Japan, we have been engaging for quite some time, I think, in spite of the CEPA having been signed, because I think we were not targeting the products that they require and the design and trends. We have intended to partnership with WGSN. And we have an in-house team which predicts, trends for all kinds of garments. Because I think you have to, the fashion industry, the trends and designs keep changing every now and then. So you need to be, completely abreast with what is going on in the rest of the world. Then, of course, you see, there are certain economies which have obvious advantage and you can't do anything about that. There are LDCs, they can give prohibited subsidy, cash incentives. Some countries have, a very low wage structure. And of course, being LDC gives them advantage of zero duty market access. So, that is something you can't do anything about. The only way I think you can leverage, you need to leverage technology. I think there is a requirement of technology infusion, in Indian industry. You can use Industry 4.0. You can always, in assembly line, you can employ robotics. Blockchain technology, of course, we use in traceability. You can employ, use what you call IoT in logistics. And of course, artificial intelligence in fashion forecasting. So I think unless we do that, and unless we improve our productivity level, we will not have edge over others. Speed to the market, I think things have changed quite a lot, because Earlier, the logistics cost was supposed to be 14% of GDP, which over the years is supposed to have come down by 7 to 8%. India's ranking in LPI, Logistic Performance Index, has improved quite a lot. It was 54 in 2013, which is now it's 36. You see there is a visible change in the port and road infrastructure. Our cargo dwell time and turnaround time are almost at par with global standards now. But having said that, after all that improvement, I think still we lag behind in terms of speed of market. So we need to do some. We need to address that problem sooner rather than later. There is another area I think which has a lot of potential for growth, that is e-commerce, because the government has earmarked 20% of its export target in 2030 to the e-commerce, which means $200 billion. And right now, the India total e-commerce trade is not exceeding $5 billion. So I think there, yesterday we were discussing, in the interministerial group at Vaniji Bhavan, that there are certain policy tools that is required, because some regulatory changes, some FEMA guidelines need to change, certain, caps, because the problem is that there are a lot of rejects and return goods in e-commerce, and there I think most of the e-commerce players end up paying duty because they are not able to correlate their exported goods with imports. So maybe there is some requirement in the courier shipping bill. Then of course RBI has come out with a draft policy where that requirement of achieving minimum 75% of the invoice value, that is undergoing some change. So a proper, fast, and I think progressive e-commerce policy can drive the change, and the sectors that will benefit out of e-commerce policies, of course, garment, textile, and leather, and maybe gems and jewelry. Then, of course, we found that there is a huge skill gap. We recently discovered that there are certain items which are huge in demand, even in cotton segment, like cotton pullovers, outerwear. But then India doesn't manufacture them. There are only one or two companies that manufacture. When we try to delve deep into it, we found that higher SAM items, standard allowed minute items, which requires little complicated, sewing and all of that India doesn't manufacture. So I think we need, in the skilling, I think we can introduce some kind of product-specific skilling, so that some trainers could be, trained to manufacture those products alone, because ultimately those products are in huge demand. So even if we are not able to, ramp up our MMF garment, at least even in cotton, the products which are in high demand, I think we can meet those requirements by producing those. And I think it only requires, that skill gap to be bridged. Then of course, but all said and done, I think the major thing is that the policy making, the government and the industry, I think, has to adopt a holistic approach. I think there are too many players in the textile sector, and if I can say so, without holding me back and without mincing words, I think many a times they work at cross purposes. It baffles me, why do we push export of yarn? We need not prohibit export of yarns, of course, but then why should we promote export of yarns? It baffles me. And then, you find that a fiber unit would try to protect itself at the expense of everybody in the downstream industry. And that approach is of, every segment. So I think we need to look at a larger picture, come together and work in public interest, not necessarily in the interest of that particular segment of the industry. We have tried to do quite a bit. Certain things we keep on doing in AEPC. We have created a ESG task force of our private people. We have been engaging with most of the ESG players. We have been sensitizing them. We have been telling them what EU regulations entails for them. We have been, like I said, trying to intend to MOU. We have already intended to MOU with NIFT, with Green Business Council. We are about to enter into, MOU with all the big e-commerce players like Amazon and all. So trying our bit in a small way. But the problem is, I believe that there's a larger need that all the elements of this industry need to come together and have a holistic approach. And I think brainstorm regularly, because something out of box needs to be done. Otherwise, we will stay where we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the number of items that you have listed, from branding, fashion, but mainly we are trying to push what we are producing rather than what the world is demanding. The demand-led approach needs to be put in place, and more cohesive approach within the system. We are too many, maybe too small and too dispersed, which is costing us. I'm already seeing Kansal Saab has 3 pages full of notes. But he has promised to listen to at least one more